All right, good morning, everybody. So good to see you all this morning. You'll have to excuse me. I'm getting over a cold, or I'm right in the middle of a cold that I picked up from Camp Create. When I'm typically around hundreds of kids, I typically get sick, but worth it. It was a great week, and so I'm going to suck on a cough drop while I talk to you. Please excuse me from that, and I'll probably drink my coffee while I talk to you this morning. and and I may do it while I'm preaching too. We'll see. If my voice goes out mid-sermon today, just act like that happens, and we'll leave and we'll pray. Whoever's leading singing, Eric's leading singing today. He's not in it. Where's Eric? Just sing a song and we'll call it a day. But anyways, so I'm excited to be with you today. We're going to continue through Philippians. We're still in Philippians 1. We will move at a faster pace through Philippians than we have Matthew, I promise. A lot shorter book. We're spending a lot of time in Philippians chapter 1 because there's just there's a lot of good text here in Philippians 1. And so today we're going to be looking at verses 20 through 21. Somebody read those for us. I don't have them on the screen yet. So somebody go ahead and open there and read those verses for us.
What was it again?
Philippians 1, 20 and 21.
I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ and to die.
Okay, so very popular verses you are more than likely familiar with, but I want to kind of put them in a different light, in a different context. Alex, if you'll go to the first slide. There's a British artist. Maybe you're familiar with him if you follow art in any capacity. He's very nonviolent. He's anti-greed. He's anti-war. His name is Banksy. And Banksy, the interesting thing about Banksy is nobody really knows who he is. Still, I mean, he's one of the most famous modern-day artists, yet nobody really knows who he is. I want to just kind of share some of his artwork with you if you aren't familiar with it. He's a graffiti artist, as you can tell. He uses stencils. Here's one of a Native American holding a no trespassing sign. You get it, right? A very political artist. Go to the next slide, Alex. Jesus on a cross holding Christmas gifts. Pretty self-explanatory. Next one. A little seemingly third world poor kid pulling well-to-do first world people on a rickshaw. Next slide. Kids in some sort of camp or prison camp setting painting paradise through the wall. Next one. A rider throwing flowers instead of, rocks or whatever. Next slide. So here's a security camera footage in a museum where they caught Banksy, and they still don't know who he is, but they caught Banksy switching out a classical painting for one of his paintings. He copied the painting and then put his own graffiti on the painting and snuck into the museum and switched it out. Next slide. And you can see there what he did. So, this colonel, this old George Washington-looking dude, with a peace sign, and I forget what he wrote on there, but this is just the kind of stuff that Banksy does. He's very mysterious. Nobody knows who he is. Next slide. So this is one of the most recent happenings of Banksy. They sold one of his most famous paintings at auction in 2018 for $1.4 million. Well, Banksy submitted this painting for auction in the frame that it was in. They still don't know who he is, but he put this, and as soon as the auctioneer hit and it was sold, the frame turned on, and he had hidden a shredder in the frame, and it shredded the painting, and you can see the look on their faces. So as soon as it sold for $1.4 million, he shredded the painting, and everybody absolutely loved it, and it made the painting that much more valuable. I mean, it like doubled in value instantaneously. Several years back, decades ago, Brad Pitt bought a Banksy for about $1 million. And Banksy put a publication out and said only an idiot would buy one of my paintings for $1 million. What's so intriguing to me is that nobody still knows who he is. He's thought to be a guy named Robin Cunningham. People try and find Banksy. He has remained anonymous. He snuck into the London Zoo one time, into the penguin exhibit, and spray painted on the wall in huge letters, "I'm tired of fish." And it's just fascinating to me the way that this guy operates. He is a mystery. Now, if you saw one of his paintings out on a sidewalk or something, he likes to paint rats and things like that. Or you were somewhere else and saw like a little kid holding a heart balloon, and you thought, oh, that looks similar to that one artist. Maybe you drive by a building, see a huge painting that looks like it has stencil work, and you think, oh, that's probably a Banksy. Slowly, you start to learn how to find the works of this artist. You start to see and notice the characteristics of his work. And if you were to, yeah, Rick? Who'd they make the check out to? To Sotheby's. The auction house got the check. He didn't get a dime of it, and he doesn't care one bit. No, he shredded their painting right after that, yeah. I mean, think about it. If you were to start recognizing his work, and if you were to even further dive into Banksy, start researching him, he has a website, by the way, starting Wikipedia, you could learn more about him. You get deeper and deeper into knowing who this artist is and being able to find his work among the streets, especially if you're in London, because that's where he is based. That's where the majority of his work is. You would start to get to know him on deeper levels, even though he is a mystery. So there's this mystery surrounding him and his work, but his journalist knows who he is. His family knows who he is. Surely they know who he is. Maybe he's got this secret life that they don't know. I don't know. Of course, Banksy knows who he is. And so think about that, and we're going to approach Philippians here with that in mind. Now, go to Ephesians chapter 6. Next slide, Alex. And let's start there with this idea of mystery. There are some who don't know anything. There are some who have gathered a little more information. And then there are some who know for sure who he is. Somebody read for us these verses.
Pray also for me that whenever I open my mouth, words may be given me so that I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly as I should.
All right, so mystery is a word that Paul likes to use in describing what the gospel is like. He uses it a lot. And so he says, please pray that this mystery, I will proclaim it boldly. I have a message, and it centers around this mysterious thing. All right, now go to Ephesians 1 and verse 9. And we're going to read a couple of verses here. So somebody read for us the first, Ephesians 1, 9. So this mystery is no longer a mystery. It has been made known to us, and God's will is connected and flows out of God's good pleasure, and God's pleasure and will have produced a mystery which is now revealed, which he purposed in Christ. So this mystery is connected with what God is doing through Christ, and then he says to be put into effect when the times reach their fulfillment. So something is happening in history to bring unity to all things, to bring unity to all things in heaven and on earth under Christ. If you take notes at all, I would just write the word unity here. This mystery is about unity. That's what's happening in this mystery. So this mystery which has been revealed, it flows from God's pleasure, which I find absolutely fascinating and beautiful, and is connected with Christ, and it's bringing about unity in all things in heaven and on earth. Unity. So this unity isn't just about us, it's about everything. God says, I want to put it all back together. Now somebody read chapter 4, verse 8 for us.
They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the light of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts.
So if unity is what Christ is doing, then separation, darkness, ignorance, hardening of hearts is what we have before Christ. And then Christ brings about unity. Go to Romans chapter 16. And Paul uses this word mystery again. And the mystery is Christ bringing everything back together. Once again, somebody read this for us.
Now, him who is able to establish you in accordance with my gospel, the message I proclaim about Jesus Christ, in keeping with the revelation of the mystery hidden for long ages past, but now revealed and made known through the prophetic writings by the command of the eternal God, so that all the Gentiles might come to the obedience that comes from faith, to the only wise God, who glory forever through Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, so this mystery has been hidden for long ages past, for thousands and thousands of years, for people for thousands of years who have seemingly longed for unity. They've longed for restoration. They've longed for heaven and earth to be brought together once again. And there are people who have sensed this deep separation from God and wondered, will it ever get better? Will everything ever be made right? Or will this destruction and chaos and darkness and hardness of heart continue? And he says, no, now it has been revealed. And if you're taking notes again, I would just write all the Gentiles. Unity, all the Gentiles. Now, Paul's a Jewish man, as you know, a Hebrew of Hebrews. He grew up and was taught with this awareness that we have our God, and our God has big plans for us, and we are called by our God, and our God will never forget us. He believes that. He hangs on to that. And he says, oh yeah, this mystery isn't just about my God's love for the Israelites. The mystery is about God saving everybody, all the Gentiles. And Gentiles is just another word for everybody that's not an Israelite, everybody. So the mystery isn't just about God bringing unity to all things through Christ, but it's also about God's saving love for every single human being on earth. Now Colossians 1. Somebody read that for us.
The mystery that has been kept hidden for ages and generations, but is now disclosed to the Lord's people. To them God has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory.
The hope of glory. So you've got, this mystery is about unity. It's about everybody, Gentiles, Jews, everybody. But it's also about hope. It's about hope. And he says the hope that's always been present since the very beginning. That hope has never left. And he says the hope that's always been around. God is working through Christ to make it known to everyone, to open everybody's eyes to this hope, to bring unity to everything. Colossians 2 and verse 2 says, my goal is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love, so that they may have the full riches of complete understanding, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ. So this mystery is not just something that God is up to. This mystery has a name. He has a name, and it's Jesus, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So there is an upside-down wisdom with Christ. It's not like the wisdom of the world. And in this Christ is hidden the ultimate and upside-down wisdom of God. And Paul is longing here for people to see and to know that mystery, for them to understand this mystery. Our world tells us that we are loved and accepted by how good we are, how moral we are, how successful we are, how right we are, how well lined up our beliefs are. Even within Christianity, we operate this way sometimes. Our world tells us that our God likes winners. God loves achievers. Our world tells us that we are loved, valued, accepted by what we do. And yet this mystery, the wisdom of Christ, tells us that we're loved, valued, and accepted simply because we belong to him. Simply because we are his. It's different. It's upside down. The essence of the gospel is that we aren't saved in our life by all of our goodness. It's that we are saved in our death. That's the essence of this mystery. You're saved when you lay down yourself before God and allow him to save you. You're saved when you die to yourself and when you take on Christ. You can only understand the wisdom and saving love of Christ when you give up the game of being saved by how good you are. That's the only time you can understand this mystery. If you don't understand what Paul is saying, you will walk by it and never notice it. You'll walk by him and never notice him, because that is the essence of this mystery. It's upside down wisdom. I'm rescued from my condition, not when I continue to try and rescue myself, but when I give it up and let God rescue me in Christ. This is the core, this is central to this mystery. Now, go back to Philippians 1, and let's talk for a little bit, okay? Verses 20 through 21. So Paul, you know the context of this letter. Paul is imprisoned. He doesn't know whether he's going to live or die. He makes that known. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him. And he doesn't get into a lot of detail here. He just simply lays it out as it is. So somebody that read these verses again for us, and we're going to slow down and talk about a few of these words here in the original text.
I eagerly accept and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain.
So big time, powerful words here. We've already explored how Paul is writing to this church, how much he loves them, he cares for them, he adores them. He has that pastoral tone, that fatherly tone. And now he seems to be expressing his own mindset to them. Like he wants them to understand kind of he's at peace where he's at, even though he may die. He's fully aware of that. And yet, here's the wording and the language that he uses. So eagerly expect, in the original language, I'm not even going to try and get you to learn the Greek word. It's a huge one. But the word here for eagerly expect has the idea of like leaning on tiptoes. Have you ever been so anxiously like awaiting something that like you're at the front door like tiptoeing? Anytime our kids buy something on Amazon, this is what they do. I mean, Ever just bought a new PS4 controller, and I didn't think the kid was ever going to shut up about it. I was like, please hurry up and get that thing in the mail. He just constantly like, Mom, can I check your phone? Can I check and see where my PS controller is? You know, and yesterday it finally came in, and he's just at the front window, you know, like this. I posted a picture not that long ago on social media. Forrest ordered a stuffed animal. The kid has 5,000 stuffed animals. He sat on the front porch waiting for this stuffed animal an entire day. And I was like, dude, we got other stuff to do. No, Dad, I'm going to sit right here, and I'm going to wait on this package. I said, I'm looking at it, buddy. It's not even close. No, but what if it shows up, you know? This is what Paul is saying. I eagerly expect, like I'm longing, I'm waiting to see what happens. I can't wait to see what happens. That I will in no way be ashamed. But will have sufficient courage to do what I need to do. Like I know that God is going to bring about good through my situation. That's what he's saying. And he's longing for it. How do you arrive at this attitude? How do you arrive at this mindset when you are on the brink of death or on the brink of uncertainty and you're in prison? How do you get there? Any suggestions? Because I don't think I'm there. I don't think I would have a similar response. I think my response would be one of fear. My response would be one of uncertainty. But I want to be where Paul is. Rich, did you raise your hand, Rich?
A young, eager heart, you just said it with your son. A young, eager heart that is not clouded by the world's garbage.
True.
So it's important. The priorities are low. So you have uncloudedness if you're looking for, say, you're looking for a person that will get you out of this world. And like I said, you're just, it's an unclouded mind, if you will.
Right.
So you have that, it's a priority.
Yeah, and that's a really good thought. And I think in addition to that, the uncloudedness is kids live in the moment, don't they? That moment is everything for them. They're not thinking about the future. They don't have plans. They don't fear of what might not come. They don't have the uncertainty, because uncertainty plays into worry and anxiety and fear. It's, man, that stuffed animal is everything, and I'm going to get that stuffed animal. And for Paul, it's that Christ is everything. Christ is a mystery that Paul knows who he is.
Comes to him as believers.
That's right. Yes, Cheryl.
I think about Paul and his interaction with the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
And there was no doubt, and, he knew that God existed. Christ was the Son of God. Just from that reaction with the Godhead. And,
Yes.
I would think that if I would hope that if I had that kind of relationship, that I would also be, have confidence that whatever happened was what God intended for me.
Yes. Me too, Cheryl. I think if I was in this situation, I say that I probably wouldn't respond the same. That's a fearful stance. I would hope that I would respond this way. But if I'm ever put in this situation, I don't know. Paul knows. Paul knows. Yeah, Jay.
When I read this, I think of like Polycarp and the early church fathers.
Yeah.
They were going to martyrdom.
Yeah.
And they knew they were. And I see in the words like shame and courage that when he dies, he wants it to be a glorious situation and Christ exalted.
Right.
I think he even has fears that, some of the things he's going to face, is he going to man up? And
Yeah.
I think that's some realities you see in his, and kind of what he's worried about, what he wants to do, and go the right way, is what he's tough.
Yeah, and I don't want to make him out to be a superhero who doesn't have human emotions.
Very, very much has human emotions. Kinsey.
I think also not only is he looking forward to what's happening and his eagerly expectation
Mhm.
of that courage coming upon him from God, from Christ, but he's also reflecting, because he says, so that now as always. So you have to reflect on that's how that courage is built up.
Right.
That reflection on how Christ is already put you through.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And we've talked about how the do not fear commands, and then you've got the remember commands in the Bible. And I think that there's a reason for that. Like, do not fear is the most repeated, remember is the second most repeated word, at least from what I've read. That may be inaccurate, but when you remember, you don't fear. Amanda?
Well, and I was almost going to say the same thing, but kind of along the lines of that. Like, I think that when we are afraid, he says he hopes that he has the sufficient courage, not only remembering, but like talking about. I don't know, I'm an external processor, so when I'm
Really? I didn't know that about you. Yeah.
when I'm afraid of something, if I talk about it and I remind myself like out loud and talk to people who care about me and who are helping me
absolutely. And you see what he continues to say here. Now, as always, Christ will be exalted. In the Greek, that just means magnified, made bigger is what it means. So what he's saying is, look, if in a few days I'm hanging on a cross, I very well could be, that's going to make Christ known more. So you think about the mystery that we've talked about. This guy Banksy, who's a mystery who nobody knows that well, but some people know him really well. Christ, according to Paul, is a mystery. Paul knows him well because of his interaction with him, because of his past with him, because of all the things that he's done. Now, as always, I want to make him more known through whatever happens to me. Just the pure selflessness in the stance of the gospel, the mystery will be magnified, it will be made known even through my death. And then he's going to kind of lay it out. Here's what my mantra is. Here's what, if Paul had a tattoo anywhere, which he probably didn't, this probably would have been tattooed on his arm, And so to live is Christ and to die is gain. To live is Christ and to die is gain. The Greek is Christos, kurdos. Christos, kurdos, kind of a catchy phrase there. If I keep on living, I will keep preaching the mystery of God. If I'm still alive, I will keep on revealing the mystery of God, that God's grace is for all Gentiles, that God is bringing about hope for all people, and that God is uniting all things on heaven and earth together. This mystery will be made known through my life, the mystery of Christ. If I die, well, my word, I gained so much. I finally get to see the one face to face that I long for, that I love, that I want to imitate in every possible capacity. My goodness, if I die, I am with him. I stand before him. I embrace him. I don't know anybody that I read about in Scripture that longed to be with Christ as much as Paul the Apostle did. Like, he just wants to know him. He wants to be with him. He wants to be like him. And he says, regardless, if I keep on living, I'm going to make the mystery known. If I die, Christ will be magnified through my death. Regardless of whether I keep on living or if I die, Christ will be made known. This mystery will be revealed. So, should we live that way? I mean, Paul lives this way. I think some of us are a little reluctant. Honestly, I mean, I'm a little reluctant. That's a lot. Is it not? That's a lot. I've still got areas in my life where I'm a little hesitant to be like, well, if I live, it's Christ. Well, not everything I do is about Christ. If I die, then it's gain for sure. I'm confident of that. I've devoted my life to ministry. Yeah, sure. Amanda says a lot of times God uses me against my will, because a lot of times it's not my will to be involved in ministry all the time. And I'm completely fine with that. And I want God to use me against my will, because my will is horrible. His will is perfect. Do we want to get there? If so, how? Sherry?
None of us have the experience that Paul had.
Right.
He was called. How many of us have been struck blind in the middle of a road, had a voice come down
Right.
from heaven?
If it's happened, you need to come up here and talk, please, and I will sit down and be quiet.
Okay, if that had happened to me, that would be so real in my mind that to go from that to that statement right there would not be a very long journey for me.
Right.
But none of us had God call us in that way. And he was called against his will. Whereas all of us, it was a decision of our will to choose to follow Christ.
Yes, so we don't have the same experience. And Paul talks about everything that you've talked about, Sherry. You know, those who see Christ and have faith, those who don't yet see Christ and have faith. But he also talks about you're without excuse. Like, I've seen Christ, but do you not see Christ all around you? You're without excuse. Everybody should know Christ through what surrounds you. Everybody has a law unto themselves of morality and right living because you are made in the image of God. And I think Paul would speak to that for us when I specifically put up my reservations and put up my hesitations. He'd be like, boo, come on, dude. You know Christ. Chad, then Jay.
I was going to say, I do agree with her on I always just kind of wish I had this big, boom, kind of hardcore moment.
Right.
But at the same time, I also ignore his voices that talk to me to say, hey, we need people signed up for children's worship. And I'll be like, I don't want to do it at this time. So he is trying to get us to do things that we decide not to do.
Yes.
And I just want to make a comment on all this, that it's easy to have belief, like I'm cool if I die tomorrow. Like that is easy for me to believe and realize. What's hard is, like you're saying, the everyday thing to then act like Christ here while I'm alive is much harder for me personally.
And to make him known intentionally.
Exactly.
Yes.
All the time. And with along the lines of what she's saying, it's if you watch the Paul the Apostle, I think is what's called on Amazon movies, whatever. Their spin on his end of his life, the movie is taking place when he's in the prison in Rome at the end of his life, and Luke's visiting him to write stuff with him. And the way they portrayed his death was more of this, we got to remember he lived his life after this moment with major regret too of everything he did bad, which
Yeah.
truth be told, I've done stuff bad, not near that bad. But I think a lot of these things he's writing to encourage people, but it's almost like he's journaling it to him to boost himself up of not going down a dark path of I regret everything I did before that time. And so I don't know how to sum all that stuff up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so he's definitely, I think there is some self-reflection here for sure, but he's also writing to this church to encourage them. I mean, that's the main drive behind this is, hey, because this church adores him. This church started with Lydia. We looked at that early on. Paul cares for this church, and he wants them to know, hey, even if I'm not in your presence physically, like Christ is magnified. It's a good thing. Jay?
I was going to say that I think part of what makes this hard is that we're at different places.
Yeah.
If we're sitting in prison under the reign of Nero, we're going to be a lot more focused.
Yeah.
But where we're at, we're more distracted because we're not in the foxhole with the bullets flying.
Right.
But in reality, we are. And it's just hard for us to not be distracted by all the, the wonder that we're in. But if you're in that position, you're extremely focused.
You are, and that's a great point. And it makes me wonder, like, where's the balance? How do we talk about, because I don't think there's anything wrong with living your life. Paul would say the same thing. Go about your business. I mean, he says, live a quiet life, work with your hands in 1 Thessalonians. Like, just mind your own business. Like, do your thing. Magnify Christ in this. But yeah, you find yourself, when you're in the midst of persecution or really hard situations, you find yourself zoned in and focused. I've been there, done that. You're absolutely right, Laura.
You keep talking about Isaac and comparing it with Paul. Of course, it's a different situation, but he called me this morning and he goes, Mom, I gave you that scripture. Did you read that scripture? He gave me that scripture 2 days ago. I think
Yeah.
I had a grandkid for the rest of the time. I couldn't.
You've been hair busy, haven't you? Yeah. Mm.
Mom, you gotta look at this. I mean, to have time, and to not have no responsibility of family.
Yeah.
A lot of the family have kids, and yeah, the guy is gay, but I think about not
Right.
You know, he just lived a different life, and if I had 2 or 3 days of quiet time with my Bible, I could probably write a good letter to Philippians too. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
That's not to take away from Paul, but just saying, I think God gives people different strengths, and it can either bring you down, or like Paul, it can just, it can just build you up. And
Right.
he spent a lot of time with God.
Right. And so what we figure out is how do we, in our capacity, in our life situations, how do we embrace this? How do we make this true of ourselves, in our relationships, in our families, individually, but also as corporately as a family? How do we do this? You know, and Paul would say, hey, none of y'all need to get married because your concern is going to be about your wife and not the Lord. It's like, okay, Paul, chill out. You know, it really does feel that way. It's like, well, I messed up a long time ago. Amanda, you want to split up? You know, like that kind of thing. Not at all. But how do we embrace this in our situation with our job responsibilities, with all the things that we take on? And how do we do that? Yeah, Tommy, you raise your hand.
One of the words up there, courage.
Yeah.
And that courage that we have every day to try to live for Christ. We also say encourage. That opportunity we have to encourage others so that our body is exalted, Christ is exalted each day. And it takes a lot of courage to step out and present Jesus to people because of our personalities, being human. But through courage, what Paul is talking about here, we can accomplish that goal also by trying to exalt our bodies and live for Christ each day, exalted before others.
Right. And Paul, you know, Paul has all the courage in the world to simply talk about Christ as well. We lack that courage a lot of times. We want to beat around the bush and you know, evangelize in nice, non-threatening ways. And sometimes we need to talk about Christ. Sometimes we need to reveal the mystery that people simply don't know. And when I read sufficient courage there, that's what comes to my mind is God give me courage. You think about James and John, Peter and John, they go back and they pray for courage to preach Christ boldly. I think we need that same kind of courage sometimes. Yeah, Kinsey.
Paul, when he is sitting there, I mean, he's thinking about his death. His death is going to be abusive, it's going to be grueling, it's going to be on a cross, and it could be soon. We think of death as a few years down the line,
Right.
as an old age. You know, my expectation of my death is not abusive, grueling, on a cross.
Right.
He saw something different. And it kind of goes back to what Rick said, even with the courage, is that we have to be like a child. The expectation has to be there,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely. Ryan.
Should we consider putting in a jail cell in the back of the church? When you get off of work and you want to take a vacation, we'll let you take a week in the jail cell.
This
To really embrace Paul. Is that something we should highly consider?
this is a guy that y'all nominated as an elder. You realize that? Ryan coming with all the new age ideas. I like it, yeah. Any more we'll let Cheryl comment and we'll wrap up with Cheryl's comment.
Okay, it just seems to me that if we have a yielding spirit,
Yeah.
that we tell God in our prayers that we want to do for Him, and will He guide us? Because it even says He will even make us willing and equip us.
Yes.
That He will guide us, and we don't have to sit around and figure out, where we should go.
Right.
Because sometimes that we get in His way.
Absolutely.
So that's all Paul had completely yielded himself.
He had. I love that. And that will help us figure out how we embrace this in our capacity, in our life situation, how I live Christ out in my current place and station in life. If we yield to His Spirit and yield to His will, I 100% agree with you. Christy, bring us home.
I just wanted to say, we as Americans don't live
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
Yes, I just want people to remember that this is not, sometimes we look at the Bible as, oh, this happened way back then, and we don't have to live like that today. But as Americans, we're kind of conditioned to believe that, and in
Yes.
the rest of the world, we're not. They're not.
I would agree with you and disagree with you to some extent, and you're going to agree with me after I make this statement. But I watched a lot of you live this out this week. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I'm talking about, serving in the ways we're in, the life we're in right now. We're not in Zambia. I've been in Zambia. You wake up, you walk down the street, people are dying literally on the side of the streets. You preach the gospel. You very much live into what Paul is living. You can't do that here. So what does it look like here? And I watch you as a body live this out in various ways as you serve one another. As you take out a widow to lunch, as you serve kids and literally exhausted, and yet you're in here, you know, excited. As you serve in elder capacities, in ministry leader capacities, as you encourage and give money, as you pray with people, as you visit people. I mean, how many ways? We do live this out. Can we do better? Yeah, for sure. But I don't want you to leave here discouraged. I want you to leave here encouraged, because Amanda and I are as encouraged as we've ever been with a body of believers. And I hope you see that as well. We are pumped up. We've been going a year and a month, a year and 2 months now with you, and we're still just as blown away by you as we were the first week we were here. So I hope you are as well. All right, we love you all. We'll see if my voice